They say silence brings peace, but here, silence is only a reminder. If you type my name into the internet, you'll see a giant in a blue and silver uniform. You'll read about the $20 million contract I signed at 22. Back then, I thought Sunday would never turn into Monday. But losing an empire isn't an explosion. It's a gas leak, slow, silent, until you strike a match and everything turns to ash. Today, my bank account has $43. My Super Bowl ring, sold on eBay to pay the rent. In a little while, the sun will rise, and I'm no longer the all-pro linebacker. I'm just the guy who carries boxes in the warehouse.
From the Super Bowl to bankruptcy, the story of Marcus Reed.
I stare at the moisture-stained ceiling of this one-bedroom apartment and try to calculate how long it will be before the sun rises. The digital clock beside the bed reads 4:12 in the morning. Soon, the alarm will go off for my shift at the distribution warehouse, where I spend 8 hours a day carrying boxes that weigh less than the dumbbells I used to warm up my biceps back in 1993. My knees crack like dry wood when I try to sit up. It's a sound I know well, the sound of a structure that was pushed to its limit and then abandoned. But physical pain, believe me, is the easy part. Physical pain you treat with ice and the cheap pills I can afford to buy at the corner pharmacy. What really keeps me awake, what makes my chest tighten as if a 150-kilo offensive lineman were sitting on top of me, is the math. I do the calculations every night. I add, subtract, divide, and the result is always the same: 0. In fact, it's less than 0. My name is Marcus Reed. I am 58 years old. If you type my name into the internet, you'll see grainy videos of a giant man wearing the blue and silver uniform of the Dallas Cowboys, terrorizing opponents, taking down quarterbacks as if they were rag dolls. You'll read old headlines about the $20 million contract I signed when I was only 22 years old. $20 million. Back then, that number didn't feel like money. It felt like a divine license to do whatever I wanted. Today, my bank account has a balance of $43.18, and payday is still 5 days away. How does a man lose an empire? It doesn't happen all at once. It's not like an explosion. It's like a gas leak. Slow, silent, invisible. Until you strike a match and everything you built turns to ashes. I remember the smell of the boardroom on the day I signed my first big professional contract. It smelled like genuine leather, expensive coffee, and furniture polish. I had just come out of the University of Miami, where we played with an arrogance that bordered on criminal. We were the kings of Florida. But there, in that office in Texas with the team owner smiling at me with those excessively white teeth, I felt like the owner of the world. The pen felt heavy in my hand. When the general manager slid the paper toward me, I didn't read the clauses. I didn't read about taxes, about agent fees, about escrow accounts. I only saw the zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 digits guaranteed just for putting my name on the dotted line. I signed with such force that I almost tore the paper. In that moment, I thought I had beaten poverty. I thought I had beaten the system. I looked at my mother, sitting in the corner of the room, silently crying in her Sunday dress, and I promised her that she would never clean anyone else's floor again. The first thing I did was keep that promise. I bought her a mansion. Not a house, a mansion, 7 bedrooms, a pool, an ornate wrought iron gate. I paid cash. The $800,000 check felt like pocket change. Then came the cars. I walked into the Mercedes dealership in Dallas and pointed at 3 different models. A black one for me, a white one for my girlfriend at the time, and a red convertible for my cousin, who claimed to be my security manager. I didn't even ask the price. The salesman was shaking so much that he dropped the keys twice before handing them to me. I thought it was funny. I thought it was power. The Dallas Cowboys locker room in the 90s wasn't a workplace. It was a private club for gods. We were rock stars with helmets. The parties had no end time. I remember nights when the dinner bill for 12 people came to $15,000. And guess who pulled out the credit card? Always me. I wanted to be the man. I wanted them to like me. There was a line of people waiting for me outside the stadium, and they weren't fans asking for autographs. They were distant cousins, childhood friends I hadn't seen in 10 years, former high school coaches with can't-miss business ideas. And I said yes to all of them. Yes, I'll finance your barbershop. Yes, I'll pay for your aunt's surgery. Yes, let's open that record label. I felt like the central bank. That was when I met the man who would seal my fate. Let's call him Simon. He wore Italian suits that cost more than my father's car and spoke with a hypnotic calm. He told me I was a phenomenal athlete, but that I needed to be a mogul. He used words I didn't understand, like portfolio diversification, asset leverage, and hedge funds. I nodded and pretended to understand, because I was ashamed to admit that the only thing I knew how to do well was knock down a 130-kilo man before he crossed the line of scrimmage. Simon promised he would double my money in 5 years. I gave him full power of attorney over my finances. It was like handing the keys to the henhouse to the fox and thanking him for stopping by. The first big hit was the restaurant. The idea seemed brilliant in my concussion-filled, champagne-soaked head. A high-end steakhouse with my name and my number on the door, decorated with my jerseys and trophies. I invested $3 million in construction, Italian marble on the counter, crystal chandeliers, the best chefs in the city. On opening night, the line wrapped around the block. My teammates were there. The mayor was there. I felt like the king of Dallas, but I knew nothing about profit margins, employee theft, or operating costs. I ate and drank for free at my own restaurant every night, bringing entourages of 20 people, and told them to put it on the house. I was eating my own profit. 2 years later, the place was a desert. The debts to meat suppliers exceeded $500,000. Simon told me not to worry, that it was just a tax adjustment. He was lying. He was draining what was left to cover holes in other phantom investments. And then came the divorce. Linda was beautiful. She was the kind of woman who stopped traffic when she crossed the street. We got married at the peak, in a ceremony that cost $200,000 and was covered by gossip magazines. But Linda didn't marry Marcus, the man who's afraid of the dark and cries at sad movies. She married Marcus Reed, the all-pro linebacker, the millionaire. When my knee blew out in the 1998 season, things changed. It was in a game against the New York Giants on a cold, rainy Sunday. I planted my foot on the artificial turf to change direction and heard the sound. It was like a gunshot inside my leg. I fell screaming, not in pain, but in terror. I knew. In that exact second, lying on the wet grass, staring at the gray sky, I knew the faucet had been shut off. The surgeries didn't work as expected. Recovery was slow. I gained weight. I became depressed. The anger began to surface, the result of the blows to the head I had taken my entire life. I broke furniture at home. I yelled over trivial things. Linda tried, I think. But when the money started to run out, the love evaporated. The divorce proceedings were brutal. In the state we lived in, she was entitled to half of everything I had earned, even though she had never taken a hit, never sweated a drop, never bled on the field. The judge didn't care about my pain. He only looked at the numbers. She kept the main house, she kept the luxury cars. She kept half of the investments that I would soon discover were already worth almost nothing. The day I discovered the truth about Simon was the day I tried to withdraw money to pay child support for my 2 children, and the bank teller looked at me with an expression of pity. "Mr. Reed," he said softly, "so no one in line would hear, the balance is insufficient." I laughed. I thought it was a system error. I called Simon. The number no longer existed. His downtown office was empty. He had vanished, and with him, what remained of my fortune. I later discovered that he had forged my signature on loans, mortgaged properties I didn't even know I owned, and siphoned off millions to offshore accounts. I went to the police. I went to the FBI. They opened investigations, but the money had turned to smoke. Free fall is terrifying because you see the ground getting closer and there's nothing to hold on to. I started selling things. First, the cars that were left, then the watches. A solid gold Rolex I won for being Defensive Player of the Year was sold for a fraction of its value at a dirty pawn shop on the outskirts of town. I needed to pay the electric bill. I needed to pay the rent on the tiny apartment I moved into. The friends disappeared. My phone, which used to ring 50 times a day, went silent. Those same people I had bought cars for and paid trips for pretended not to see me when they ran into me on the street. I became an embarrassment to them, a living reminder that the party was over. But rock bottom, the exact moment my soul broke, wasn't in the courtroom or at the bank. It was in an ordinary supermarket on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the express checkout line, holding a basket with bread, eggs, milk, and a packet of instant noodles. I wore a cap pulled low over my head so I wouldn't be recognized, limping on my left leg. The cashier scanned the items. The total was $32.50. I swiped my debit card. Declined. I tried again, wiping the chip on my t-shirt, breaking into a cold sweat. Declined. The line behind me started to complain. An elderly woman sighed loudly. The manager approached. "Sir, do you have another form of payment?" he asked. I fumbled in my pockets. I pulled out some coins and crumpled bills. I counted $18. I had to look that cashier in the eyes, a 20-year-old girl who had no idea who I was, and say, "Can you take off the milk and the eggs, please? I'll just take the bread and the noodles." I walked out of that store with my face burning, wanting to disappear, wanting a hole to open in the ground and swallow me. Me, Marcus Reed, the man whose face had once been on cereal boxes, didn't have enough money to buy milk. It was that night that I made the most painful decision of my life. I went to the back of my closet and took out the small blue velvet box. Inside it was the Super Bowl ring. White gold, 150 diamonds, the emblem of the Lone Star shining. That ring represented all my sweat, all my blood, all the surgeries, all my teammates. It was the physical proof that I had been a champion. My fingers, swollen and twisted by arthritis, could barely hold it. I took 3 photos with the camera on my old cell phone. I went on eBay and created the listing. Authentic Super Bowl ring, starting player. The starting price was $25,000. I cried as I typed the description. I felt like I was selling a child. I felt like I was betraying every man who stepped onto the field with me that glorious day in Pasadena. But the eviction notice was taped to my door. I had no choice. A collector from Chicago bought the ring 3 days later. I used the money to pay overdue bills and secure 6 more months of a roof over my head. I traded my glory for rent. Today, my routine is quiet. I wake up before the sun, take 3 pills for back pain and 2 to control my unstable mood, a legacy of the concussions. I go to work at the warehouse. The guys there, 20-year-old kids who run while carrying boxes, sometimes look at me and ask, "Hey, aren't you that guy who used to play football?" I just smile a tired smile and say, "I used to be." They don't understand. They watch the videos on YouTube and think I'm still rich. They don't know that financial ignorance costs more than any government tax. No one teaches us how to be rich, that's the cruel truth. In college, I had tutors to take my math tests so I could stay eligible to play. They taught me how to read a zone defense, how to identify a blitz, how to use my hands to shed a block. But no one, absolutely no one, ever sat me down in a chair and taught me how to read a contract, how to understand compound interest, or how to say no. I was trained to be a gladiator, a collision machine, a product of entertainment. And when the machine broke, when the parts wore out, I was discarded in the scrapyard without an instruction manual for real life. I see today's kids signing contracts worth $50, $60 million guaranteed. I see the gold chains around their necks, the diamond-studded watches, the entourages of parasites around them. I want to scream. I want to climb into the television, grab them by the shoulders and shake them until they understand. I want to say, the money runs out, the fame fades, the friends disappear. The only thing that stays is the pain in your body and the regret in your soul if you're not smart. But I know they wouldn't listen. They're immortal. Just like I once was. They think Sunday will never turn into Monday. Now I have to go. The bus comes in 10 minutes and I can't afford to miss a day of work. My supervisor, a kid young enough to be my son, said that if I'm late again, I'll be written up. It's ironic. I used to be fined $5,000 for being late to a team meeting. and I laughed as I signed the check. Today, if I lose an hour of work, I don't eat dinner. I close the door of this damp apartment, walk down the stairs gripping the handrail, and head toward the bus stop. It's cold outside, my knees hurt. But I keep walking. It's the only thing I have left from the athlete I once was, the ability to keep moving forward, even when everything hurts, even when the crowd is gone and the lights are off. Just keep walking, Marcus, just keep walking.